March of 1945, the Allies put the final nail in the German coffin. Not with death or destruction, bullets, bombs, or body count. It was done with balloons, speakers, artists, and cardboard. But in World War II, the U.S. Army engaged in a new kind of deception. One based on diplomacy and less battle rather than more. For over 50 years, one of the greatest diplomatic efforts of World War II was classified from public knowledge. Diplomacy is an effort to maintain balance of war or to avoid war. Normal war strategy is to dominate the enemy with bullets, bombs, and body count. Diplomacy is the art of maintain balance of war, or to effectively avoid war in international relations. At the beginning of World War II, a small group of creative thinkers set out to convince their superiors that there was a new tactic of diplomacy throughout deception. They eventually created the Ghost Army, which was strategic diplomacy to avoid war, using deception and manipulation to confuse the enemy rather than kill the enemy and bring a more swift conclusion to the war. The Ghost Army was not established to trick and kill the enemy. It was set out to trick and avoid conflict. Captain Ralph Ingersoll was naturally very creative. He was a journalist before the war, a best-selling author, and was known to be a little crazy and difficult, which probably fueled his strong creative streak. Captain Ingersoll created a concept of a small unit of soldiers to continually harass and trick the German army into believing the Allies were in other locations, greater than they really were, and much more vast. The idea was that if you could trick the Germans into constantly spinning around, never knowing which army they were fighting or where the attack would come, the Allies could avoid more conflict and death. Ingersoll told the New York Times that we're against people who push other people around. After much debate, Captain Ingersoll's leadership decided to take a chance and let him proceed. When I first dreamed it up, I considered it one of my more impossible dreams. But dang if the Pentagon planners didn't buy it whole. Colonel Billy Harris helped Ingersoll create it. Their direct mission and objective was to save lives and end the war more quickly. They took 1,100 men and made them look like an army of 300,000. They trained in the art of deception and were never allowed to tell anyone of their mission for fear the Germans would find out and the entire purpose ruined. When they wrote letters home during the war, they had fake units, battles, and history. The Ghost Army was involved in so many efforts to confuse and distract the German army so that Allies could advance and end the war, but they were primarily involved in 21 major battles. We're focusing on the last one, which really helped bring the end of the war. It was called Operation Viersen, near the town of Dusseldorf. The Ghost Army intended to convince the Germans where 2 American divisions would cross the Rhine River. Using all 4 units, the Ghost Army carefully crafted the message that the Ninth Army was crossing the Rhine in a specific zone. All tactics were used, with radio messages that could be intercepted about Army traffic control, 600 inflatable artillery and tanks, vehicles and equipment, dummy airplanes and airstrip, even fake emergency hospitals to tend the wounded. Signal services sent the message that a major amassing of troops and equipment. They even used fake unit patches and bumper markings on their vehicles. And then they employed the sonic deception, the fake radio traffic. And they even created a phony division divisional and battle headquarters in town. Aerial photos of the build-up showed a remarkably realistic scene. It worked perfectly. The Germans built up their defenses, sure that the Allies would attack, while the 23rd was operating. They had enough soldiers to defend against 30,000 Allied soldiers. They waited, expected the attack before April 1st. By then it was all over, as the Allies were actually crossing 30 miles to the north with almost no resistance. After Operation Viersen, the Allies pressed on to Berlin and the war ended quickly. The 23rd was no longer needed, and after completing some random tasks around Europe, they were absorbed by other divisions. Besides, being one of those cool secrets of World War II, and what must have been a very interesting job, the 23rd was extremely effective. The Smithsonian estimates that their efforts are directly responsible for saving at least 30,000 American lives. The Ghost Army was so effective that their operations were kept secret over 50 years. Instead, the soldiers in the 23rd memorized fake battles, victories, fellow soldiers, and more. Replayed those stories after the war. Sergeant Stanley Nance never told his family, and his wife passed away before their operations were declassified. His granddaughter pushed for recognition for their efforts and lobbied Congressman Chris Stewart of Utah to recognize them. For years, Congressman Stewart, a veteran himself, pushed the Congressional Gold Medal for the Ghost Army. We were able to ask Congressman Stewart why they deserve such recognition and national appreciation. So, Congressman Stewart, why did you run the Ghost Army bill?
Why did I run the Ghost Army bill? That's a great question. So you guys know, because you're doing a report on it, the Ghost Army was secret. No one knew about them. And yet they were heroes. They saved tens of thousands of lives. By confusing the Germans, they brought the war to an end a lot sooner than it would have. And they, like I said, they saved thousands of lives, but no one knew about it. One of the guys I know in the Ghost Army, he was married, and for 50 years his wife never even knew about it. His own family didn't know. So when this became unclassified so we could talk about it, we thought, we've got to let people know what these guys did. And we wanted to recognize that they were heroes.
We are grateful to creativity and bravery of these unique soldiers and their secret efforts for ultimate diplomacy. We revere the soldiers who risked so much in a massive experiment to avoid death and conflict. For their creativity and for the leaders who trusted them, along with the rest of this nation, at the time, we are proud to honor their service.